Hello, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm Katie Embry, and welcome to the SCN Schools webinar on reopening for meal service during COVID-19. The purpose of today's webinar is to discuss meal service operations for the National School Lunch Program. We do have some very good news for you today. On that note, I'd like to introduce Lauren Moore, our SCN Division Director, to say a few words before we begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. As most of you are probably aware, SCN released reopening guidance for food service operations in the USDA school meal programs this past Monday, June 22nd. The guidance was focused on planning for in-person food service when schools reopen in the fall. I hope you all have had an opportunity to review this information in preparation for today's webcast. Our school's program manager, Katie Embry, and one of our school branch child nutrition consultants, Jennifer Langfells, presented the guidance to the Superintendent's Advisory Council on Monday this week, and again on the Superintendent's webcast held on Thursday. So your leadership in your building should be very familiar with this guidance document. And during those meetings, they discussed that we were preparing for submission of state waiver requests to send to the USDA for flexibilities to allow for meal distribution for all of the different learning options I know school districts are preparing for, including non-traditional instruction and hybrid learning models. So good news, as Katie said, and some of you may have already seen the USDA press release this afternoon, but I'm happy to report that around noon today, we received nationwide waivers from the USDA. The main one, of course, that everyone was waiting for was feeding in a non-congregate setting. And although we are still reviewing the details of all of these waivers, I do want to say that regarding the non-congregate waiver, it is for school meal programs. So the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program. It also includes the Child and Adult Care Food Program. So that would include at-risk, but it is not for the summer programs as you have served through in the spring. So non-congregate would be offered through the school meal programs when you all reopen in the fall. So we will continue, of course, to review this information, and we'll be distributing additional details to you as soon as we can. So with that being said, I'll turn things back over to Katie. And again, thank you, and I'm glad you joined us today.
Thank you so much. Again, we will begin working on guidance to provide you details based on the new information we received today. Today, we also have several SCN staff members that will be presenting and who are available for questions. This includes Kathy Gallagher, the program manager for the Summer Food Service Program, and Tim Cooper, our assistant director. We thank everyone who submitted questions in advance. We have several responses prepared for you today, and we'll share them throughout the presentation. All questions submitted will be answered in the Q&A document that will be released with the recording of this presentation. We do encourage you to submit any additional questions today using the Q&A feature. Please be sure to enter your full name and your district sponsor name. That will allow us to provide you with a response in case we can't get to you during the webinar today. In the live Q&A section, you can enter your name, your question, and click the arrow to send and submit. So first, we want to begin by saying a big thank you. Thank you for all your hard work and your efforts. What you have accomplished in such a short amount of time is nothing short of amazing. I want to share with you a few examples of your efforts and the positive impact on our students. First, the PEBT program at this point has provided over $155 million in benefits to over 500,000 students, which means families have a few more grocery dollars to help feed their children. The application is still open on the Benefind website until July the 10th for eligible students. We also have 20 districts participating in the Baylor University Emergency Meals to You program. Families in those districts are receiving 10 days worth of meals every 2 weeks, and good news on this as well, that program has now been extended until August the 15th. We still have sponsors providing meals through the Summer Food Service Program and the Seamless Summer option. And finally, and this is a big one, Around 88% of our National School Lunch Program sponsors have at least some level of participation in the CEP program, and with 76% of those sponsors having full participation. That means in the majority of our schools, families do not have to worry about the cost of breakfast and lunch for their kids in the upcoming school year. If you currently do not participate in CEP and have eligible schools, you have until August 31st to elect to participate in that option for school year 2021. Just let us know. Also, we had been preparing to tell you about our efforts in attempting to provide more program flexibility, but as you can now see, we have additional answers. As mentioned before, we'll work on releasing guidance and getting that to you as quickly as possible. We do want to be very clear that the reopening of schools and providing meal service during school will operate under the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program. For today's presentation, we're going to be focusing on serving students in the school building. We will focus on 4 main areas of consideration. I will begin by discussing meal service environment considerations. Sandy Wagner will discuss the meal pattern. Jennifer Langfels will discuss food safety considerations along with accommodations. And finally, Faith Corbin will discuss operational support as well as updates on the administrative review. It's our goal as the state agency to provide a framework or foundation that you can build upon to operate your program. Each and every one of you will make individual decisions based upon your schools and their needs. So now, let's start with meal service environment considerations. You will need to identify meal service methods that enable all students to have access to program meals while complying with physical distancing guidelines, and that will enable contact tracing to occur if an individual receives a positive diagnosis. To achieve this goal, multiple meal service methods may be needed during a single meal service period within one school and with different groups of children. Some of these methods may include serving meals in classrooms or serving meals in other large areas of the building, providing grab-and-go meals in the cafeteria or in hallways. Consideration should be given to ensuring that accurate points of service for meal counts can be obtained in accordance with the meal counting and claiming requirements for the meal service methods utilized. Also, we want to let you know that we are working on a procedure for CEP sponsors to request for approval to use tally sheets during the lunch meal service for school year 2021. I'll say that again. We are working on guidance to get you guys a procedure to request to use tally sheets during the lunch meal service for school year 2021. We have heard that this is a concern and a flexibility that will benefit you. Information on this request and approval process will be released in the near future. With regards to logistics, meals should be served in a supervised, non-congregate setting that enables social distancing guidelines to be followed. Pre-planning and thoughtful consideration on the delivery and service of meals to individual groups of students is needed to enable contact tracing. Additional equipment and resources are needed to implement meal service methods that take place outside of the cafeteria, and when multiple meal service methods are utilized within a single meal service period. Some strategies to achieve this may include identifying the equipment, supplies, or resources needed for the meal service method that will be utilized, staggering meal service periods so that arrival and dismissal times limit the amount of contact between students in high traffic situations, assigning seats to students during meal times that enable contact tracing, utilizing floor marks to highlight social, physical distancing guidelines where needed and to identify traffic patterns within spaces. Removing chairs to ensure social distancing and arranging chairs that face in the same direction. You can expand meal service periods to allow students adequate time for hand washing and to get through serving lines, to count meals at the point of service, and for other operational considerations that may require extended time. Other logistics, you may also install clear plastic countertop shields by the point of service stations or on other countertop areas where staff may be stationed. You can utilize disposable trays dishes and utensils. You should eliminate self-service stations if you can, and eliminate share tables and any sharing of food. Also, you may identify alternate locations for the storage and distribution of student meals brought from home. These cannot be stored in kitchen areas. Be sure to monitor and exclude access of all other individuals aside from child nutrition staff and delivery staff from behind the kitchen and behind serving lines. You should always ensure that adequate sanitation occurs between the use of tables or other services when multiple groups of students will consume meals in the same location. Consideration should be given to the increased time that may be needed in order to maintain enhanced sanitation standards of high-touch areas and services in the meal service area prior to and throughout meal service. Finally, our food service staff. Food service staff will need to check temperatures and complete any employee health screening per district protocol upon arrival at the workplace. A sample of the employee self-assessment health screening form can be found from the Kentucky Personnel Cabinet, can now be found on SponsorNet. You can edit and change this form if you choose. Staff who develop symptoms during the workday shall follow district protocol for staff illness. Food service staff shall also wear face masks at the workplace unless an employee has been granted a medical exemption. These procedures are in addition to any existing health-related standard operating procedures or policies that the district has in place for food service staff. It will be helpful to prepare by identifying resources that may be needed to enable child nutrition staff to implement enhanced sanitation standards and follow social distancing guidelines. This could include maintaining consistency of the child nutrition staff assigned at each school whenever possible, maintaining adequate supplies of personal protective equipment, such as hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes, promoting healthy hygiene practices such as using face coverings, hand washing coverings, coughs, sneezes, and the proper use of gloves, evaluating the space available in production areas and reconfiguring as able to allow for at least 6 feet of separation between staff while preparing or performing their required tasks. Consideration should be given to policies and procedures for reporting illnesses, accommodations for disabilities that may preclude the use of facial coverings, and reviewing the job duties that will be assigned to staff positions for any changes that may be needed in order to limit staff movement throughout the production area. If you have any questions on the meal service environment, please submit them in the Q&A. As you all do that, I'm going to read through some of the previously submitted questions. So our first question that was submitted, there will be an online option for parents to use if they don't want their kids to attend school. Will those parents be able to pick up meals for students who are free and reduced? And our response is this afternoon, USDA extended waivers to allow for meal services outside of normal school operations. SCN is reviewing these extended waivers and will be providing more information on how the waivers can be utilized. Another question is, can we deliver lunches to classrooms while using student rosters, The answer to that is yes. All acceptable meal counting methods, including the use of rosters that follow the regulatory requirements, may be used. Reimbursable meals must be counted at the point of service that utilizes an accepted medium of exchange when the meal is counted for reimbursement. Faith, do we have any questions at this point? Or should I continue reading?
Yes, we have 3 so far.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the first one, do we need the annual training certification for our cafeteria workers?
You will need to provide professional standards training to all cafeteria staff whose primary jobs are food service. If there are staff who are not typically assigned to food service and are filling in, they will need to be provided training on the job tasks that they are performing.
Okay, the next question, are there any recommendations for potable water during meals? If students cannot use water fountains, will food service be required bottled water? And then what if we do not have the budget for such an expense?
At this point in time, we are researching and going to provide further guidance on that. Bottled water during an emergency is an allowable food service expense, and there's also guidance within the reopening guidance that came out from Public Health today that speaks to how to keep water fountains clean, as well as students refilling them during the day. Again, we will provide more information on that.
Okay. If able to do social distancing, can we use the dining room for appropriate number of children if requested by the principals?
Yes, you can use any space available to you that allows for adequate social distancing and ensuring that contact tracing is possible. Those will be school level decisions.
Okay. What should be provided to the employer to document a medical condition that would preclude mask use?
You will need to follow your district protocols on medical exemptions for that.
If we have two groups of students, one group in the AM and one group in the PM, can they take meals home with them because of no time to eat in between?
We will be able to provide further guidance on that question once we thoroughly process and review the waivers.
Can OVS be achieved using a daily meal ticket or ordering form? Just saying.
I believe that we are going to cover that question in Sandy's part.
The next question is about medium of exchange. What do you mean by medium of exchange, and does this mean if a meal is ordered at the beginning of the day, this will not count as checking for reimbursement?
A medium of exchange occurs when the staff member at the point of sale provides the meal to the student. There must be a medium of exchange between the student back to the staff member in terms of identifying that student. Oftentimes it's a pen pad or some students say their name, but there needs to be a medium of exchange that occurs between the student receiving the meal and the staff member providing the meal to mark the meal for reimbursement.
Those are all the questions for meal service environment.
Okay, I have a few more that I'm going to read just to make sure, and then again, we will post all of these in the Q&A. Do seats have to be assigned in the cafeteria if there are cameras in the cafeteria to be able to pull up for contact tracing? Our response is no, assigned seats is just a recommendation to assist with contact tracing. There are many options for contact tracing that can be acceptable. It's recommended that you consult with the local health department that will be conducting contact tracing when there's a positive diagnosis that occurs to ensure that any alternate methods will be adequate. And our last question is, how do we determine the maximum capacity of a cafeteria? Is it based on a formula or by the current number of seats available in the cafeteria? This is so we can determine what 50% capacity would be to define reduced capacity in the cafeteria. And our response is, no, there is not a specific formula to determine or a definition for reduced capacity. However, you will need to arrange seating to ensure social distancing. The number of students that can be in the area while social distancing would be the reduced capacity and may be different based upon the layout of the room, the size and shape of the tables, as well as several other factors. Okay, we will take feel free to ask your questions, and we will move along to meal pattern considerations with Sandy Wagner.
Hi, there's going to be many things this year that are going to be different and need to be considered when you're thinking about your menu planning, but you do need to know that you should be meeting the meal patterns in order to receive reimbursement for your meals that are served. When you're planning the menus, you need to think about the meal service methods that you might be using this year. They could be different. You might be doing a lot of grab and go in the classroom, in the hallway. A lot of things there that's going to need to be considered. You need to consider the availability you have for hot and cold holding equipment, both for transporting the meals and for serving the meals in these alternate locations. You're going to need to consider any meal pattern waivers that are going to be available. Be sure your food items are suitable for the age grade group that you're serving. That would be particularly the little ones. Make sure if they're taking food to the classroom that that's going to be feasible. And also the suitability of the food items that you're going to be serving to be consumed with disposable plates and utensils. So when you're planning your meals, to try to meet the meal pattern requirements, you're going to need to consider the meal pattern for the age grade groups that are actually at the site. Those may be different this year. You may have had your preschool commingled, and they may not be commingled this year, and you would have to serve the preschool meal pattern. So be thinking about the age grade groups. Determine if or how you're going to utilize offer versus serve. And be prepared for menu item shortages. Popular items, the prepackaged items, you may have difficulty getting those, and you need to have a backup plan. I would suggest planning a very limited menu to streamline the process. I don't know what your staffing issue is going to be, a lot of pre-bagging. Monitor your food waste and plan your menus to utilize your commodities to the maximum extent in order to lower your food costs. You'll want to consider that. I'm going to go over, just like Katie did, some questions. We had quite a few sent in beforehand. I'm going to go over those. And while I'm reading these questions, if you would like to send in questions that you have, Faith will be taking care of that. We had a lot of questions about OVS. If you're using serve instead of OVS for grades K through 5 and 6 through 8, does 3/4 cup vegetable need to be served daily, or could we serve 1 cup 3 times a week and 1/2 cup 2 times a week? The requirements, the meal pattern requirements are daily requirement. So if you are serving lunch for your K through 8, you will need 3/4 cup of vegetable. And if you're serving for the 9 through 12, you will need 1 cup vegetable and 1 cup fruit. And a popular question, will OVS be required for 9 to 12? And we just got the good news. The USDA issued an OVS waiver nationwide for grades 9 through 12 today. What suggestions do you have for delivering meals to the classroom for the 9 to 12 age group? For delivering meals, we were suggesting, boxing up as much as possible, maybe having, if you were going to try to do serve, that you would want to have those choices prepackaged, bagged, wrapped up, and possibly having your staff and teachers handing those out. Do students still have to be able to decline meal components, or could being offered choices of 2 prepackaged meals? Offer versus serve does require declining components, not offering choices, but again, OVS has been waived for 9 to 12. Are we still required to serve all vegetable subgroups each week? Yes. Further information did just come out today. Targeted meal pattern waivers can be provided to schools when there are challenges in obtaining the food items due to food shortages or other issues. These are going to be considered on a case-by-case basis. And FNS does strongly expect and encourage schools to meet nutrition standards to the greatest extent possible. We had a couple other questions here. Again, OVS, again, that was waived. One was, there are pros and cons to forgoing OVS at the high school level. If we do not offer OVS, then our nutritional analysis will look much different because we do not have as many fruit vegetable choices. Will this be taken into consideration in an AR? If you have an AR and your target site is determined to be high risk, we will take into consideration for your nutrient analysis. The guidance speaks of eliminating self-service stations. If items were to be wrapped or portioned, could students pick up these items off the serving line? CDC guidance seeks to eliminate the use of shared utensils in food service operations to reduce the number of shared contact surfaces as much as possible and to implement high-frequency standard cleanings. Self-service stations would not necessarily meet these guidelines. We recommend that you consult your local health department concerning this. When will there be guidance as to how we transition between National School Lunch Program and emergency feeding on NTI days due to COVID? This afternoon, the USDA extended waivers to allow for meal services outside of normal school operations. We are still reviewing these waivers, and we will be providing more information as we have it. A couple more questions about OVS, again, waived. We need to be able to feed grab-and-go bagged breakfasts without them congregating to make choices as they come into the school each day. Will there be waivers? Yes, that would be fine. You can do that. Will there be waivers for the red, green bean requirement or for the 1 cup fruit? Again, we do have targeted waivers that will be available for meal pattern, but we strongly encourage that you meet the meal pattern, and they're going to be on a case-by-case basis. Can we feed children when they're at home due to rotational scheduling? Would that be under NSLP or SFSP? If so, will there be a waiver for the milk item? Again, we did get information about extending waivers to allow meal service outside of normal school operations today, and after we've reviewed that, we will give you more information on this. How many weeks do you recommend the menu be? We recommend keeping the menus pretty simple, 2 to 3 choices max due to your time, your staff constraints, but we recommend possibly a 2-week cycle menu, and again, make sure that you're thinking about backup items for possible shortages that could be coming. Can we give white milk at breakfast, chocolate milk at lunch? No, variety of milk is required for all meals. And can we use bottled water? If bottled water is needed to make potable water during the meal service, yes, it's an allowable expense, but do be sure that you're not competing with your milk. Do we have any other questions, Faith?
Yes.
Okay.
The first one, can OVS be achieved using a daily ticket or ordering form?
It could be, again, OVS has been waived, so you don't have to. It could be, I think it will be difficult in a larger district because then you would be making very specific meals, but it could be you could have choosing what they want to get if that's something that you want to take on.
Okay. And this may go into another section, but part of it's with meal service. If we have students coming on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, can we send home 3 meals for the days they are not in the building?
Again, that's going to go to the guidance that we just received today, and we are going to be sending out more information about that just as soon as we've had a chance to see how that's going to work.
Will students be able to pick up their own condiments and packaged plasticware, or will the food service personnel have to hand these items to them?
I think that'll be, your school is going to tell you and the health department, but I would think that you're not going to be able to touch it, that you're going to have to hand it out in some form, or maybe even have the large dispensers that you're using.
Okay. Since OVS is waived, will I need to go into my 2021 application and make those changes?
I will answer that one.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
We will provide further guidance on that and how we'll handle that with CNIPS. But at this point in time, do not worry about it.
How do you serve subgroups across the week when students will only be in the building 2 days a week? Does this mean we have to meet subgroup requirements over 2 days?
No, you wouldn't be doing it over 2 days. You'd still be serving the whole week. We are going to try to come out with some menus to give you some ideas to help with that. I would do, obviously raw vegetables, salsas, things that are packaged for take-home days, and make sure you're getting those more difficult hot vegetables when the kids are in school. That might be when you want to serve your beans and your starchy vegetables. But a lot of districts were able to do it over the summer.
Okay. If we have 3 entree lines, will the vegetables have to be the same on each line in order to meet the vegetable subgroup requirements? In the past, students could cross between lines and had access to all vegetable subgroups offered each day.
Okay, that's a difficult one. If we're doing prepackaged meals, we're going to have to really, for the most part, you're probably going to have to keep your subgroups the same. You're going to have to meet them. You're still going to have to meet them on every line. And I think with the supply and the staffing and the time issues, I don't know that you're going to want to be having those so many separate choices.
Would students choosing milk from coolers be considered self-service?
It would, and again, you're probably going to have to get with your district and your health department. I would think they're going to want to have those milks handed out. We don't want them, picking up one and putting it back, and I would think it's going to have to be handed out.
Is OVS waived for K through 8?
OVS is waived for 9 through 12. It's always an option to serve for K through 8.
Let's see. You mentioned 2 to 3 choices, I'm assuming on the sample menus. Is that necessary, or can you serve one meal unitized?
Sure, you could just serve one meal. I would definitely recommend keeping it as simple as possible. I know some districts have offered a lot of choices, and dropping it down to one might be a little shocking to the students, but you could.
If we are serving in the classroom and giving a complete meal with no OVS, how will we serve both chocolate and white milk?
You're going to have that as a choice, and it's going to have to be handed out. You'll have to be asking the students which they want.
And that one goes. Let me look at the rest of it. Let me look real quick. How do you not compete with milk when the milk and water have to go in the same bag or tray to serve students?
Well, if the milk and the water are both in the bag, then you've given them the milk and you're not competing. And I think that's going to be the case with most issues, because I think most districts are going to be serving, so you're going to be serving them the milk and the water. Otherwise, you have to be sure when they take water to ask them, you want the milk also if you're serving.
Do you have any recommendations on how to serve the milk outside of the cafeteria?
Well, a lot of districts do it now with their breakfast. They grab and go their breakfast in the hallway and that kind of thing, and they'll have the trays with the ice, or they have insulated coolers. I assume we're talking about keeping the milk cold.
Yeah. The last one for meal service. Do we still have to offer 2 milk options when available?
Yes. Easy one. Is that all the questions?
There's one more that just came in. If feeding the classroom, could milk order be placed by the teacher before bringing the milk to the classroom? And still be able to say that you gave them an option?
I would say yes. You could have something then that would be reasonable for the staff to be able to do that. As long as they're given the choice. Is that all of the questions?
That's all we have right now.
Okay, then I'm going to pass off to Jennifer Langfels, and she's going to talk about food safety and accommodations.
All right, thank you, Sandy, and afternoon, everyone. And I've got the easy section because these are things that we do every day all the time. I think we're lucky in food service because none of the sanitation and safety practices that are a big deal for everybody else to learn and incorporate, they're things that we have always done as part of our normal operations. So I think if there's any silver lining in this situation, it is that we are already experts in that, and we can actually help the others in our districts learn about the sanitation and keeping things clean and when to change your gloves and all that good stuff. But starting off with accommodations for disabilities, this is another area where there's no changes in the requirements. You just might have to think about how you're doing it differently. So accommodations for disabilities that enable equal access to the program must be provided when supported by the proper documentation. The meal pattern must always be met to the extent that a child's disability allows. Where you might need to look and make some changes are in your plans that you're providing accommodations with, and make sure that they include any other school staff that may be involved in the meal services that you're doing, and addressing how you're going to be doing this if they've never been provided outside of a cafeteria environment. Ensure your communications are provided only through secure methods. You don't want to be emailing private information about students through unsecure methods such as email. And ensure that all required information on a medical statement has been provided and is on file when your meal pattern requirements cannot be met due to the nature of a child's disability. If you want to learn more about that, review that for yourself. There is training and information and resources available in the comprehensive program training on SponsorNet. For food safety plans, again, this is nothing new, but every school has to have an individualized written food safety plan in place that is applicable to anywhere program meals are stored, prepared, or served. So you want to think about when you're getting that food safety plan and you go to review it, that you're making sure that it is written for that school. Now, to review your food safety plans, first you want to make sure that every school actually does have a food safety plan in place. But then when you're going to start reviewing your food safety plan, you want to make sure that there are SOPs that are written to be applicable to all areas of the school building where food may be stored, prepared, or served to the students. And you want to review and update those menu process charts and update the menu that's going to be served there. You want to review and update your operational description that's in your food safety plan to make sure it identifies how the program is operating within that site. Then you also want to review the standard operating procedures to identify if new SOPs need to be added, if SOPs are in there that you don't need anymore, or if SOPs are needed but they need to be revised to reflect what's going to be your updated processes. Whenever you go through and revise your food safety plans, you want to make sure that you train all staff to make sure that they understand the SOPs that are relevant to their assigned duties, with an emphasis on SOPs for hand washing, proper glove use, personal hygiene, serving safe food to students with allergies, cleaning, sanitizing, food contact services, and the food service health policy. Again, these are things that you already know, but just to kind of, it's something we might have to think about a little bit differently if we have a lot of kids not eating within our cafeteria environment like we're used to, but especially children who have a disability due to food allergies. They need to make sure that they're being served in a safe environment. Make sure that your food safety plans do include an SOP that speaks to serving meals to children with allergies. And if you're serving it outside, you just want to make sure that you review that SOP and make sure that it's adequate when they're being served in other parts of the building. Just make sure that you're working closely with any other school staff who may be involved in your service of meals, just to ensure that there's proper communication of what's needed to provide safe meals to those kids, and they understand what their role is in all of that. Now, when it comes to building a culture of food safety, it's very likely that most schools will have meal services that are no longer be confined to that cafeteria. So the goal is really to create a culture of food safety throughout the school community and not just within food service. So creating that culture of food safety will help to ensure safe food practices are followed. How you can do this is making sure that you're training all school staff on the food safety processes and the SOPs in your food safety plan that are relevant to their role in providing meals. Identify any additional equipment or supplies such as thermometers, alcohol wipes, or equipment that may be needed to keep food safe when transported or served in other areas of the school. And then you want to obtain or develop posters or other aids to assist those non-food service staff to implement safe food practices when they participate in the service of meals. There are all kinds of free resources available out there. You can get down in the rabbit hole down in ICN, the Institute of Child Nutrition's website. They have all kinds of posters, they have lesson plans, they have trainings that you can just pick up and utilize. They have 10-minute presentations, they have hour-long, they have the whole gamut. You can find things on USDA's food safety page, Department of Health. So go out there, see what those resources are available. If you have trouble finding something, let us know and we will assist you in getting something developed. And finally, this might be new for some people. We haven't had kitchens that have been closed down since March and then coming into a new school year before. Now, most of you have not closed down your kitchens and you've been serving for a while, but there might be some out there who have not been serving this whole time. But regardless, you want to make sure that you are doing a deep clean on your kitchen. So these are just some things that you'll want to look at and consider when you're opening up your kitchen for this year. You want to make sure that you're just giving it a deep clean and that you're making sure things work properly. Now, there's a lot of checklists out there that you can find to provide a framework for reopening the kitchen after it's been closed. These are the most common ones that we were just going to highlight to give you some of those recommendations. You want to empty and clean all of your equipment, including the ice machines and the sinks. Wash and rinse and sanitize all food contact surfaces. This is a good time to identify any equipment or facility repairs and get those done before the school year starts. Ensure your dish machine is working properly. Make sure that the chemicals in all of your chemical dispensers are working correctly and correct concentrations are being provided. Check those temperature gauges and make sure that those are working properly and reaching the required temperatures for both the wash and the rinse cycles. Check the condition of any food products that may have been left in storage and discard any expired products. Remove all clutter and unused items from all food service areas, including your storage rooms. Rearrange your coolers, your freezers, dry storage areas. Try to reduce those points of contact that would occur during deliveries if you're able to. Wash, rinse, and sanitize all unprotected tools and small wares, and clean and sanitize all shelving before putting those back into storage. Check your floors and under equipments for signs of pests. Clean all floors and floor drains. If there's an anticipated increase in trash, ensure the dumpster areas are clean to prevent the attraction of pests. And finally, especially if your kitchens have been closed for many, many months, check the facility's plan for the building. Water systems, hot and cold, may need to be flushed for 10 minutes or so to minimize the risk of Legionnaire's disease before they're used again. Oh, okay, and we're already here to questions, so go ahead and you can type in some of your questions. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and read. We only had about 4 questions related to food safety submitted. The first one is, do the pans that kitchen staff will be using to prepare food have to be disposable? No. Now, again, fortunately, the sanitation and food safety measures that are part of our normal food production operations are conducive to serving meals safely. It's not necessary to use disposable wares when preparing meals unless you're having sanitation issues due to other reasons. Now, it is highly recommended that you just review your food safety plan and make sure that staff are following those for the cleaning and disinfection. Another question was, what are thoughts on food that is not prepackaged, such as burgers, sandwiches, and pizza, if students are coming through the line in the cafeteria? There is not a prohibition of serving hot menu items in the cafeteria, and there's not a requirement to only serve prepackaged food items. So just make sure you're planning your menus to be appropriate for the meal service method that's being used. Do we need to use only closed containers or boxes for meals? And again, this will depend upon what's appropriate for the meal service method that you're being used. So if you're doing grab and go meals or something, that certainly would want to be in a closed container or a box. Will we offer sack lunches to avoid students touching utensils or milks? There is no requirement to serve sack lunches. You're more than welcome to if that's what best serves your students. Do we have any other questions?
Jennifer, are you ready for questions?
Yes.
Q&A? Sorry. Back down through here. Is there guidance on requiring daily recorded temperature monitoring of staff?
That is in your district policies, and you should follow what the district has written in their policy.
Okay. If there are students who have meals for their special dietary requirements brought from home, can we no longer store and serve those meals to students?
This is one where you might want to talk with your local health department. Generally speaking, with the food code, they do not allow outside food or drinks to be stored in your kitchen. So again, I would consult with them and go with what they are recommending.
Will KDE be developing sample food safety SOPs for non-traditional COVID-19 feeding to help districts that could be modified to meet their needs?
Well, I'm going to partially answer your question. So one of the things that you should be seeing in the next few weeks is that we are creating a food safety page on SponsorNet. We're in the process of updating the SCN template for the food safety plan for schools. The first thing that you're going to see there is that we're going to go ahead and post all of our sample SOPs. As far as SOPs related to COVID, if there's something specific that you have in mind, feel free to shoot me an email. If we don't already have something up there, I can try to help you find one, or we can try to put something together for you.
Are we allowed to use lunch trays in the cafeteria and to be washed?
Yes. So as long as you're following your procedures for handling used like utensils and plates, I believe that the Kentucky Department of Health's guidance just says make sure you're wearing gloves, and they're being properly washed and sanitized. So as long as you're following those good food safety and sanitation practices, yes, you can.
Okay. Are you using HACCP plan and food safety plan interchangeably?
So the requirement in the National School Lunch is that you have a written food safety plan based on HACCP principles. So that's what I'm referring to.
Okay. If students come through the line, hold on, let me read. If students come through the line, we do not have to have the food items wrapped or packaged, correct?
There is no requirement to pre-wrap food items. You would just need to make sure that your staff is able to serve that in a safe manner.
Okay. And that is all for food safety at this time.
All right, thank you.
So now we'll go over operational support. This will talk more about policies and procedures, and this is going to be important because you're going to have people probably outside of food service assisting you and making sure that you have these procedures in place. So clearly written procedures and policies must be developed and implemented to successfully operate the child nutrition program. All staff must be knowledgeable about the food service policies and procedures and be able to collaborate and communicate those effectively with other stakeholders as needed, such as your principals, if a teacher is going to be involved, and making sure that your staff on site know what those procedures are so that if the food service director is not available, they will be able to speak to them. Collaboration with non-child nutrition staff stakeholders is key to ensuring that processes are agreed upon and understood. So that's why it's important to have those conversations before the beginning of school with your principals, with your teachers that will be involved, or aides that will be involved, to make sure that everyone is on the same page and understands the procedure. Strategies that will help you achieve this goal may include reviewing the written policies and procedures that you have to ensure that they are up to date and that they are clearly communicated to all applicable staff within child nutrition, ensuring that those written procedures for food safety, meal preparation, and meal counting and claiming are available and easily accessible to staff when it is needed. That's very important, especially if you have others with meal counting and claiming involved, that they have those handy in case they need to refer back to them. Ensuring schools are properly staffed for the food service production and service methods that are and will be used, and that regularly assigned staff and substitute staff are properly trained. Identifying other school staff who may be trained to carry out select food service processes or tasks when staff shortages are expected. establishing written procedures for when school staff receive household applications or other program-related documents or communication, and also working with your vendors to create a delivery plan for each location in order to establish processes that reduce or eliminate contact with staff, ensure only one delivery is received at a time, and ensure that all required health and safety guidelines for deliveries will be followed. It is imperative that those in student households know and understand how to communicate and interact with the child nutrition program. Families and caregivers must be able to provide and receive program-related information in a manner that is accessible to them. Consideration should be given to providing program-related information and activities through multiple avenues to make program information as accessible as possible and identify those avenues for households to easily interact. This may be social media, it may be a hard copy that needs to be given out to the households or mailed home, or something that they could stop by the school and pick up, or a one-call system that could deliver child nutrition information. Strategies that may help achieve the goal of outreach to the households: identifying a specific contact person or people within each school to receive and respond to the communication. This should include all written materials that are provided to the households and to school staff so that everyone's aware. Identifying multiple methods of communication concerning program activities. Communication can be simultaneously posted on the website, emailed to households, made through automatic calls, or provided in written materials. Reviewing the program-related information provided on the website. Assess areas where additional or clearer information may be needed to enhance communication, and provide links directly accessing the documents that the families may need, and making sure that it's in a format that is user-friendly. Assessing if new technology may be needed in order to provide online household applications, obtaining electronic signatures, or transferring protected student information. Develop a program-specific information or policy document that details program activities that could affect the household, such as whether the use of vending machines is allowed, any changes to a la carte sales, policies concerning outside food brought into the building, and restrictions on outside persons during the meal service. So at this time, if you have any questions about operational support, you can go ahead and submit those. I'm going to read over some that were submitted before the webinar. So the first question, can we extend breakfast and lunch hours? Yes. Using the waiver COVID-19 Child Nutrition Response number 34, this waives the meal service time requirements to support access to nutritious meals. The next question, how will we take numbers from the students? All acceptable meal counting methods, including students providing assigned personal numbers verbally that follow regulatory requirements, may be used to count the meals. This is another question about meal counting and claiming. Can we use student rosters? Yes, you can use student rosters. All acceptable meal counting methods, including the use of rosters that follow regulatory requirements, may be used. Reimbursable meals must be counted at the point of service that utilizes an acceptable medium of exchange, such as the child saying their name, saying their lunch number, the person at the POS addressing the child by name. That would be a medium of exchange. So in this instance, this is a full CEP district. Can we use a numbered form to mark students such as used in SFSP if students go through the cafeteria line so that they do not have to use the touch pads? CEP schools with approved meal counting and claiming procedures are able to count meals for reimbursement using tally sheets. And we do have those tally sheets available on SponsorNet. When will decisions be made regarding, I'm going to skip that one and go to the next one, we'll come back to it. Would it be possible for CEP schools to do tally sheets for lunch? If a student comes through line, they are spaced out, so we're following social distancing practices. Yes, CEP schools may use a tally sheet with approved meal counting and claiming procedures. Can I change my school's K through 12 to bulk meal counting for breakfast? We would use clickers to count meals as they are handed out, then record that on the tally sheet. No, in this case, clickers cannot be used. Can I use rosters to record meals at lunch to avoid having the students touching the keypads? Yes, you may use rosters. How do you, would it be possible for CEP districts to file a copy of the day's attendance rosters and enter both breakfast and lunch as bulk meals in their POS by use of tally sheets? This will eliminate the need to collect POS numbers verbally or by touching the pen pad. CEP schools with approved procedures are able to use their tally sheets for meal reimbursement. The attendance rosters should not be used for meal counting and claiming purposes. They should only be used to conduct edit checks or to investigate meal count discrepancies when they occur. If we are using the online free and reduced applications to issue benefits, can we also utilize those same forms for the CEP as the HIV form to reduce paper and handling? No. There must be a clear differentiation between the National School Lunch Household Application and the HIV form, regardless of the format, and they must remain separate for the following reasons. First of all, the purpose of the individual forms. The HIV form is only utilized to qualify a student for educational benefits and for use with state and federal programs. In addition to this, the National School Lunch Household Application is also used to determine the student's meal status, which impacts the student meal charges. Communicating this difference to the household can be very challenging, but it must be kept separate. The other thing that you need to think about is distribution. The National School Lunch Application cannot be distributed prior to July 1, while the HIV form can be sent out prior to July 1. Another reason is due to USDA verification process. A sample of the National School Lunch Program household applications must be verified for accuracy each fall. Combining those forms would introduce difficulties in this process. And the last reasoning is due to the non-discrimination statement. Each form has separate non-discrimination statements, and by combining those forms, it would introduce confusion to the household on which non-discrimination statement would apply to their circumstance. Are there best practices to prepare for intermittent closures and a quick transition to emergency feeding? Our program regulations allow schools to serve meals during anticipated school closures. And in this scenario, we are not talking about NTI. We are talking about the school is completely closed. You are able to do this through SSO, SFSP, and CACFP at risk. If additional waivers or flexible feeding options are not made available for emergency feeding when schools are closed, the normal avenues for providing these meals can be found online on our SponsorNet page, and also the Institute of Child Nutrition has resources for emergency school closures. So the document said that we will have to train non-food service staff that will be assisting in our programs. Will KDE be communicating to our superintendents and principals that their staff must participate in our trainings? And will SCN provide us with the trainings that are expected for non-food service staff? Yes, superintendents and principals have received the same communication concerning the need for training. The training that must be provided is whatever is relevant to your role, to their role in the program. So it depends on if this teacher is only using meal counting and claiming, then that's the training that they will need. If it's something happening in the kitchen, then they may need to be trained on a standard operating procedure for food safety. Please remember that anyone involved in the program also needs food service civil rights training. Who will be responsible for supplying and paying for the PPE, and what about the cost of equipment needed to transport food to students? PPE and equipment used to provide meal services are an allowable expense to the food service program. These expenses can also be covered by other funds in the district. Has KDE communicated to superintendents and finance officers the financial impact of the loss of revenue from NTI days? Yes, that has been communicated to the superintendents and finance officers. So that's all the questions that were submitted before the webinar. Are there any questions that have been submitted now?
Yes, we do have several questions at this time. The first one, there's several questions relating to vending. So I don't know if Jennifer, you'd like to speak to, and Sandy follow up with vending machines and offering a la carte items.
Okay. Excuse me. Vending machines, there is no prohibition against it. You would need to think about how you're going to handle the cleaning that would be required, if that would be considered a high-touch surface area, and other alternatives for that. I'm not sure if you were asking if they are allowed or cleaning, disinfecting, sanitation, those kinds of things, but there is no prohibition against it. Your district may decide that they don't want to have it, and that's fine. But you would just need to make sure that you have procedures in place and a frequency for sanitation and frequent cleaning. Sandy, do you have anything to add?
No, a la carte is permitted. You just have to think about how you're going to be able to do it safely.
Another best practice for a la carte is considering how students will provide the funds or the exchange of funds. So you might want to suggest at the beginning of the school year for parents to put extra funds into their payment, their online payment systems to make that process go easier. So there's less interaction at the POS purchasing those items. Our next question, and this again is for you, Jennifer. What is the guidance regarding pen pads?
So again, that's just a high touch surface. So you would have to have frequent cleaning in place. You can look at some of the other industries for high touch surface areas such as the retail environments. That might give you some ideas if you want to try to keep the pen pad and see if that procedure would be acceptable to your district and your local health department, if they would feel comfortable with that as well. So you can just try to see what other procedures are out there for other industries that are similar and see if that is something that might be able to work for you. Otherwise, you would probably just want to come up with a different medium of exchange there to record the meal.
Thank you, and I will answer this question. Do we have to reapply for waivers for school year 2021, or do they resume from summer? So all waivers that are applicable to the National School Lunch Program, you will receive guidance on how to give us an indication that you would like to use that waiver. So be looking for that in the near future, and we'll provide that when we provide guidance on the waivers that came out today. The next question would be for Faith. Can we use the teacher to be the person doing the tally sheet in the classroom?
Yes, but you need to make sure that they are trained on the proper meal counting and claiming procedures and how you would want that documentation turned back into you for your meal counts.
Thank you. And the next question I will take, do we need to go to our applications and mark serve for K through 5? If you are planning on providing serve only to your students for whomever, please do make that change in your application. And again, we will address 9 through 12 because CNIPS will give you an error status if you try to do that for 9 through 12. So we'll address that in the near future and let you know how to handle that. The next question is for Sandy. Will we need to make adjustments to our, oh, excuse me, I just answered that one. You do not need to make adjustments to your applications for not doing OVS for 9 through 12, but you will at the other grade levels. The next question is, will students be able to come to the cafeteria and go through the line and either be served the hot meal in a to-go container and pick up the cold options themselves? Sandy, if you want to take that one.
That is going to be, you're talking about touching them yourself. Again, that is not, I think some people took that I said that that was not permitted. You can let them pick up themselves. That's going to be up to you, talking with your health department and your district, how you want to handle that. I would recommend as much as possible having the staff handing things to the students and serving the students rather than letting the kids touch anything, and they cannot be touching, you know, utensils and anything that anyone else would touch.
Thank you. Here's another question back to the classroom for Faith. If you are serving meals in the classroom, can the teacher administer the roster? All meals that would be served would be fully reimbursable.
So when I talk about a roster, that means that they have seen the reimbursable meal be handed to the child, and that is marked off either by the child's name or by identifiable number, and then turned into food service. An attendance roster cannot be used.
Thank you. The next question, is there a tally sheet already made for lunch service in CEP schools? At this point in time, we do not have that, but we will prepare that for you when we release information on how to apply for that option if you choose to do it. I think at this point in time, we will move on. And so if anyone has any additional questions, please go ahead and enter them. And again, we will take all questions and post them in the final Q&A document if we are unable to get to them today. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Faith.
Okay. So for the school year 2020-21, we will be administering the administrative review and procurement reviews. All administrative reviews that are scheduled for the upcoming school year will not begin the on-site until the spring of 2021. So when I say spring, it'll be March, April, or May with the on-site visit as of right now. For a list of sponsors scheduled for an AR in the upcoming school year, those are posted on SponsorNet. If you have any questions regarding your upcoming administrative review, please contact me. More information will be sent out to food service directors and superintendents concerning your administrative review in August. I know everybody's stressed right now, so I kind of want to give you some time to work on your reopening guidance before we start talking about your administrative review. And then the offsite portion will not open until January 1 of 2021 for those upcoming administrative reviews. We at SCN are very interested in creating and sharing reopening plans with the different districts based on your school size, any innovative ways you're planning to serve meals to your students. Please email your point of contact with those plans that you're willing to share. Please remember that resources for reopening and for the National School Lunch Program are on SponsorNet. Additional resources can also be found on KDE's COVID-19 considerations for reopening schools, food service operations. And during this time, dedicated SCN staff members will be ready to assist with specific questions regarding reopening your meal service at your schools. So please email for assistance at kyschoolnutrition@education.ky.gov and indicate that this is for COVID-19 meal service operations. And we want to thank you all for your time in attending the webinar today and the questions that you have. This webinar will be available later as it is recorded, and we will also provide a fact document with your questions and answers.
We do have a few more questions coming in.
Okay.
If the carryover benefit period goes beyond October 1 due to school starting later than normal, how will this affect the October 1 qualifying data pool, the October 1 qualifying data pool and verification pool? That is something that I'll take this one. That's something that we will have to review and consider and think through more. We will give you guidance on that and check to see if anyone does extend past that period of October 1st. But as you know, that October 1st data point and this is only concerning schools that do not operate CEP, is for the number of applications you've processed that year. So it's the number of applications you've approved, and carryover students would not have a current application on file. So we will think through that and give you more guidance on that one. Next question. In the past, we could not serve meals through SFSP or NSLP during NTI days. Will we be able to serve through SFSP for school year 2021? Kathy, would you want to speak to that one?
Sure. Thank you, Katie. We are still analyzing the waiver extensions that just came out, but the non-congregate waiver extension does not apply at this time, we think, to SFSP. So we'll have to get back to you on what would be done with that waiver extension. Of course, unanticipated school closure, you can serve SFSP. As far as NTI, again, we would just have to get back to you with more details on that. I'm sorry I don't have a better answer.
Thank you. Our next question, Sandy or Jennifer may be able to speak to this one. Head Start has been with other grades in the past. Now they will be separate. What do we need to do to switch over to CACFP to provide these meals?
Are they talking about to get reimbursement from CACFP or just the meal pattern?
I would expect the meal pattern and the possible preschool meal pattern.
If it's just the preschool meal pattern, if they are separate, you will have to use the preschool meal pattern. And you feel free to reach out to me. We have that available, some information. It's not that big difference. It should be pretty easily transitioned to that.
Thank you. Just a few more questions. If our district uses NTI days to start school, can we provide meals away from the building? And again, we did receive waivers today from USDA, and we are analyzing those and reviewing those, and we will have that information to you shortly. A few more questions. If CEP schools use tally sheets for breakfast and lunch, they will not be using the POS. So how would adult meals and a la carte sales be entered if a la carte sales can be accomplished? Faith, do you want to speak to that one?
Mm-hmm. So that is a process that the district will have to come up with for the a la carte sales. I know on the tally sheets, there is a place to mark adult meals, but you would also have to have a procedure on how you're going to take money, or are they going to prepay for those meals, because they cannot be provided based on the student reimbursement.
Thank you. And following up on a similar question, if when a tally sheet is approved for lunch, Is there a manual edit check that can be utilized? Also, if transferring the information for meal counts from the tally to the POS, will the POS edit check be acceptable?
Yes, you will just need to make sure that your POS information is up to date and current for the edit check, because you haven't been putting in the same information as you normally would on a regular day. Or if you are a CEP district, you can use the edit check hard copy based on your average daily attendance, and more information will be coming out about that.
Thank you. A few final questions. Is the procurement waiver still in effect for purchasing equipment to deliver to classrooms? Yes, during a time of a national health emergency or public emergency, you can use that to procure items without using the formal procurement methods due to it's a national emergency situation. We can provide further information on that as well. I'm seeing the last of the questions. If there are any more, please submit them in the Q&A. And again, just to reiterate, we will make this presentation available on SponsorNet. We will also post, we had a request to post this to be shared with district staff, so we will put the presentation as a PDF and the live version or the recorded version, and we'll also post the Q&A document. So are there any final questions? I do not see any at this time. So I just again want to say thank you on behalf of all of us for all of your hard work and everything that you are doing to make these programs possible and help the students in Kentucky. If you need anything from us, please let us know, and we will again be providing information to you in the future on the waivers that came out today. Thank you so much and have a great day.